Hey everybody, it's your friend Jason Pound here answering the top questions asked by home sellers in today's real estate market. And the question we're tackling was submitted by a viewer. What about water systems? Do I get to take my water system with me or do I have to leave it? Or does it add value to the house? What should I do with the thing? Well, the short answer is sometimes you leave it, sometimes you take it. It depends on the situation. As usual, let me over explain. Water systems fall into a unique category of what I call luxury upgrades, and different price points behave differently. So, permanent lights are real famous, like permanent holiday lights or architectural lighting. Water systems, security systems, solar systems, entertainment and surround sound systems, and pool systems. The thing about all of these upgrades is the higher you go up in price point, the more those systems are just expected to come with the house. The lower you go in price point, the less these systems are expected to come with the house, but also the less willingness of the buyer to pay extra for them. So the question is, how much value does this add to the situation? So, as we dig into this, the first thing you need to think about is whether you own or lease the system. If you own the system and you want to take it with you, or you are leasing the system and do not intend to leave the equipment for the next buyer, you need to go ahead and remove all of that equipment. We want to show the house in the condition that it's going to be purchased by the next buyer. There is nothing more psychologically damaging than a buyer falling in love with a property and then one of the hooks that made them really like the place is taken away, and they are less emotionally loyal to the transaction and more likely to cancel if negotiations start to get tough. You also need to consider when you are leasing, some of the leases are assumable and some are not. If you have an assumable lease, many times your hope is that the next buyer is going to take over that lease. 9 times out of 10, they don't want to do that. Those are just the facts of life. Now, the realtors can share the information and we can hope that the next buyers will behave in the manner that you want, but don't plan on it. Number 2, you have to ask yourself, is there a lien or no lien that has been placed on your property? Back when solar systems were first being installed on roofs and they had separate loans associated with them, you had realtors who were listing houses for sale, but not accounting for the payoff for the solar system. So you would get to closing and be unable to close because there were only enough funds to pay off the home loan. There were not enough funds to pay off the solar system. And then when the buyer was told that they were going to have to pay $25,000 extra to purchase this property, they were not down with that. Also, when it comes to appraisals, a lot of these items, you're not going to get full value for them. For example, on the solar systems, the appraisal guidelines say that when the appraisers are using comps and using solar to increase the value of a property, they have to find another similar property within a certain radius of that house that also had solar and sold at a higher price to justify the addition of price to the value of the property. So until we've played around with solar systems probably for another 5 to 7 years, we're probably not going to have enough comps for those. Another one are pool systems. Like if you go out and get you a brand new pool, depending on how much you want to spend, but on average, you're going to spend around $120,000. And if you turn right around and place your home in the market, you're not going to get a full $120,000 for that pool. You'll probably get about 60% of the value, which is the third talking point here. So once you figure out whether you can remove the system or leave the system, and whether there's a lien or no lien and how much loans have to be paid off, the final thing you have to realize is there is a value gap between the seller who installed this amazing upgrade that they have enjoyed and they think it's worth a gazillion dollars, but your seller or your buyer is viewing that upgrade as a depreciating asset that has already been used, and they don't want to pay full price for it. So when these systems have been installed within a few months of the house going on the market, the sellers tend to want top dollar and the buyers just aren't willing to pay for it. Whereas once the systems are a little older and the seller is not expecting as much money for them, often the seller and buyer, the gap is not as large and they're willing to pay a little bit extra to have the pool. They're willing to pay a little bit extra to have the water softening system. And I can't remember if I talked about this earlier or not. I've done so many takes now, I keep messing up. But when it comes to price point, the higher you go in price point, the more these systems are just expected to come with that price point. And then the lower you go in your price point, the less these systems are showing up in those properties, but also the less willingness of individuals to pay extra for those. In short, whether you leave it or take it, whether it adds value or takes away, it just depends on the situation. It's a sometimes sort of thing. My name is Jason Pound with Jericho Pound Realty Group, Keller Williams, Mullenix, and Norman. If we can ever be of service, don't hesitate to reach out. We service the entire Oklahoma City metro area with hyper-local expertise in South Oklahoma City, Moore, and Norman. In the meantime, peace out. Have a great life.